grieving. Some families will be lost to one another forever. To those of you who face the difficulties of reconnecting with family and establishing ongoing relationships, we say sorry. We offer this apology in the hope that it will assist your healing and in order to shine a light on a dark period of our nation's history. To those who have fought for the truth to be heard, we hear you now.
You're listening to Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption. I'm one of your hosts, Jo Sparrow. This podcast is a production of Jigsaw Queensland Post-Adoption Support Service. However, the views expressed are those of the people participating, not necessarily Jigsaw Queensland. The podcast discusses adult themes and listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Adopt Perspective. I'm your host and president of Jigsaw Queensland, Jo Sparrow. Today's guest is a Queensland mother who lost a daughter and son to adoption. Di Riddell is also a rape and domestic violence survivor who has dedicated her life to helping others find their voice and is the author of 3 books, Beyond Abuse, Speak Out, and Knowing You. I first read Di's story in the Australian Women's Weekly, and she joins us today to share it with all of our listeners. Welcome to Adopt Perspective, Di.
Oh, thank you very much, Jo. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I hope I pronounced your surname right. I meant to ask you before we started and I forgot. Oh, good. Excellent. Di, I thought we might begin, if it's okay, with your personal experience as a mother who is separated from her daughter and son through adoption. And I thought I might just ask first if you could share a little with us about your life before you became pregnant.
Well, I'm 75 years of age, so I was born in 1947. So life was very different then to what it is today. I grew up in a violent alcoholic household and there was no help for women in those days. My father told me that I was stupid, useless and worthless and not worth educating. So I grew up with no confidence, no self-esteem and no self-belief. So I was a sitting duck for trouble. And when I was 15, I was a victim of pack rape. I knew one of the men, not the other 2. Wow. And a pregnancy came out of that and an adoption. But my self-belief was so low that I thought that's what I was worth. So I let people use and abuse me for another 5 years. And until I fell pregnant the second time and had the baby. And then the welfare workers told me to go nursing and get out of society's way because no decent man would ever want me.
Yeah. So I'm going to just backtrack a little bit, if that's okay.
I went too far, did I?
No, that's okay. That's okay. And that's a lot. I'm so sorry that all of that happened to you. But I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your first pregnancy with your daughter and what led to your separation with her and her subsequent adoption, I guess. So what sort of happened around that time after you found you were pregnant?
Oh, absolute fear, disbelief, tremor, scared, anxious, whatever word you could use. And I wasn't game to go home and tell my parents. So I went to my eldest brother. He was a lot older than me and he was the family rock. He was the only one who could control our dad.
Yeah.
So I went to Brian and told him, and he said, well, you're incredibly stupid for getting yourself in a situation, but we've got to deal with it. So, I'll come with you. We'll go home and we'll tell mum and dad. So, and of course it was a shocking experience. And I can't quite remember what happened next, but I was bundled up because it was so shameful back in the 60s.
Yeah.
So shameful. So shameful to fall pregnant. So I was bundled up as a domestic for a doctor and his wife who lived somewhere out in the Kenmore area. So, and that was just open paddocks and etc. in those days. And that was pretty awful. The doctor was my attending doctor. My pregnancy checkups were, you'll find out when you get there. When I did go into the surgery, I wasn't allowed to go in through the front door. I was bundled in through the back door into a dressing room and then shepherded back out and taken home. So I never left the property except to go to a doctor's visit. I was shunned. I was hidden away. My mother didn't have a car. Dad wouldn't let her drive their main car. And I think she came to see me once in those months that I was there. Now, this doctor was really a predator in that he tried to get into my room at night. So even although it was summer, I slept with the windows locked, the door locked, and a chair underneath the doorknob because I knew that nobody was going to believe me.
Yeah.
So there was fear, and just more fear. It was a horrible time to be there.
Ooh.
Whoa, yes.
Well,
and then when it was time for the baby, when it was due, I just got whisked off to a private hospital at Corinda, which is no longer there, but it was. And he was the attending doctor, and I was just
shamed. The inappropriateness of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely dreadful.
Yeah.
And there was absolutely no contact with the baby, no see, no touch, no hear.
Mm-hmm.
David was born first. He was whisked away immediately, and I didn't see a single thing.
So it was your son that was born first?
My son was born first.
Sorry, I got that mixed up.
That's all right.
I was going to ask you, because a lot of mothers say that they were advised or told they couldn't see or hold their babies after they were born, and that was the case with you. Yeah.
And it wasn't a matter of asking you.
Mm-hmm.
We're told this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And this is what happened. I'm not even sure now whether they actually told me prior to, or if they just whisked the baby away. I can't actually remember that. It's so long ago.
Yeah. Well, and there was so much trauma that happened at the time too. I mean,
exactly.
Details like that can either become sharper or lost, can't they? Yeah.
And then after a few days, the welfare workers turned up, and they were two mature women. Here was I, this scared 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And they just stood over me and screamed at me and had this sheet of paper just telling me I was going to sign.
Yeah. So there was a lot of pressure.
There was absolute pressure on me to sign it because I was ashamed. I was shameful, and I was a disgrace to everyone, from myself to my family to my town to my country to the universe and everything in between.
And so you weren't advised of your rights at all regarding the adoption that you can remember?
There were none.
Yeah.
If there were any rights, I wasn't advised. No.
Yeah.
No, I was just told that there would never ever be any contact. This was my punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Just get on with life and forget it's happened was virtually what I was told.
Yeah. And what were the other hospital staff like?
They too treated me with disdain because I was the shamed unmarried mother.
Yeah.
My treatment was very poor.
Yeah.
It was society. But at the same token, we look back, we can't put today's values on yesterday's actions.
No.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was awful. But
and it's hard for a lot of it's hard for a lot of people today to even comprehend that that's
absolutely
what it was like.
Well, both David and Sue had absolutely no idea that that's how girls were treated.
Yeah.
So it was an eye-opener to them.
Yeah. What was life like for you following your son's adoption? You left the hospital. What did you go back to?
Oh, I went nursing.
Yeah.
So I went into the nurses' quarters, and nursing again was very strict in those days. You lived in nurses' quarters and stood on from daylight till dark. I didn't really have time to think too much about anything. It was just get up and do what you were going to do.
And there was no support for you afterwards, so you were just kind of told to bury it, I guess.
I was told to forget all about it and get on and make a life with nursing because, like I said, they told me that no decent man would ever want me, so nursing was going to be my future.
Yeah. So I know while you were nursing, I think you met a man. Is that correct? Yes. Can you tell us about
Well, like I said, because I had such a low self-esteem and low self-belief, I believed that's what I was worth.
Mm-hmm.
It was a road worker and rough as guts. But at that stage, I thought that was all I was worth.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out with him for some time, and then I experienced a terrible experience one night, and I thought, that's it. I'm going back to the nurses' quarters. I'm done. So off I went, and I found out that I was pregnant.
Yeah.
But even if I had known, I would not have stayed there.
Yeah.
Yeah. His father came home drunk and hit his mother and knocked her across the room simply because he didn't like what she put on the table for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And as she stood up, she looked at me and she said, I deserved that. And it was like something just went off in my head, and I thought, that could be me.
Yeah.
No way, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So at some stage, there was something inside me that was bubbling up that was saying, this is not right.
Yeah.
I am better than this. I can do something. So I walked away.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was pregnant, so it was that just cut into my training time, and I had 6 months off or whatever it was. I can't, thereabouts,
Mm-hmm.
and then came back and finished my training.
So again, you lost your daughter this time to adoption again.
They were a little bit kinder this time. I was sent I was sent as a domestic to a couple, an army couple.
Mm-hmm.
He was away a lot, and they had 3 young children. 2 were at school, and then there was a little one about 2-ish. And he used to miss his mum.
Yeah.
So if she was a nurse. So if she worked a late shift, I used to put her dressing gown on and lie down on the bed with the child, and that would coax him into thinking it was his mother, and he would go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Only when the army dad came home, he thought that I was open game as well.
Right.
So there was a lot of fear again, where I didn't feel safe. I was very unsafe.
Yeah.
I didn't know what else to do because I knew that no one was going to believe me.
Yeah.
And then I went to Brisbane Women's for Sue's birth,
Mm-hmm.
and they were a little kinder. At least they gave me pain relief. But for David's birth, they refused me pain relief.
Yeah.
Telling me that was my punishment.
Mm-hmm.
At least the second time I did get pain relief, but the welfare workers weren't any kinder. They had a field day the second time. No, well, you've been here before. No. Doubly a disgrace to the world, to my family. How could I do this? Go back nursing and stay there, because really and truly no decent man is ever going to want you.
I'm so sorry, Di.
Yeah. It was such a horrible time in life.
Yeah. So what happened after your daughter was placed for adoption? What happened
Same
in your
thing,
life
no,
then?
no help available, no emotional help or psychological help of anything. It just wasn't around in those days. I just went back nursing and just got on with it because I thought that would be it.
Yeah.
And then eventually I met my husband, and he was a blind date.
Mm-hmm.
Because back in those days, men would ring the nurses' quarters looking for a date.
Oh.
And I turned very efficient after all my experiences, and I used to send them off with a flea in their ear. But this particular day, I answered the outside phone, and this polite male voice said he was in town for a conference and he was looking to take someone to the opening dinner. Would I like to go? And I found myself saying yes, and that was the man I married.
Wow. So this was kind of like the Tinder of old, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
You just ring the nurses' quarters.
Yes. Well, that's right. It was like the bulk store.
Yeah.
As it considered as such. Yes. So
Tell
there
us
was a bit of a story there too, because
go on.
Les had been married before.
Uh-huh.
He had 4 children aged 10 to 16, and I was 24.
Mm-hmm.
So I took on a bit when I got married. We had the 4
Yeah.
children were with us, and then the
Yeah.
next year we had a son together.
Wow. So life really changed for you. Tell us about your life with Les, because I can tell by your face that it was a really beautiful life.
Oh, it was. He was an amazing man.
Yeah.
He thought the sun, the moon, and the stars shone out of me, and he was the first man who really treated me with respect.
Yeah.
And I blossomed under his love.
Yeah.
I guess it's the right word to say. And he encouraged me and supported me because it was pretty tough. I thought, being the efficient nurse, I thought that I would organise for youngsters like I would organise a hospital ward. Well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of adapting going on, but Les was always right there behind me, supporting me.
Yeah.
And he never let his children come between us. If he had something to say to me, he would say it to me when we were on our own. He never said anything to me in front of his children.
Yeah.
And I think that went a long way as well.
Yeah. Making me cry, Di.
He proposed. He was in, like I said, he was in. I did my training in Maryborough, and I met Les at the beginning of that week. They used to have a week conference back in those days. By the end of the week, he had asked me to marry him.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I've got something to tell you. And he said, well, I've actually got something to tell you too. You go first. So I told him my story, thinking this will be it. He'll be off.
Yeah.
And he didn't even blink an eye. And then he said, well, I've got 4 children, aged 10 to 16. I took a deep breath and thought, that's a fair package I'm taking on.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of challenges, but there was a lot of love there. And we had an amazing 31 years until his death in 2002.
I'm sorry to hear that. So you went on to have like a third child of your own as well as your stepchildren, is that right? Yeah. So could you tell us what the impacts, if any, were that when you did go on to mother other children?
Well, I didn't get a chance to mother any of the others.
Yeah.
So I felt that I really didn't have too much experience. And while there was certainly a big fear factor, that birth was a very different experience. I was treated with respect. I was given pain relief when I needed it. And there was support all around me. And Les was there beside me all of the time.
Yeah. I've heard sometimes mothers express that they held their children a little bit tighter. Sometimes they were a little overprotective. Sometimes, I've heard one mother say that she never let like a door come between her and her child that she had after the adoption, because she was frightened someone would come and take it. She wouldn't let the nurses take the baby away, that kind of thing. Did it have an impact on you as far as how protective you were? Or
no, it didn't.
Yeah.
I think because Les was there and he was my absolute rock, I felt 100% safe. So it was a whole different experience. And I knew that nothing was going to happen this time. I knew that he wasn't going to be going anywhere.
Yes, yeah.
So no, I didn't. I don't recall having any of those feelings. I just felt safe, secure and loved.
Yes, yeah. So, have you been able to reunite at all with your son or your daughter?
I have, and extraordinary circumstances. When I wrote, so Les passed away in 2002, and dealing with my grief, all of that past bubbled up, the past that I'd buried, that I just thought had gone away. And in dealing with that, I ended up writing and self-publishing my story, which is Beyond Abuse. So that was the first Beyond Abuse. And at that stage, I said I would be open if they came to me, but I would not go searching. And then 10 years, in 2018, I republished Beyond Abuse, filling in gaps of what had happened in the intervening 10 years, where I'd done an enormous amount of self-development work. And I also included 4 men and 4 women's stories, because stuff happens to men as well as to women. And the day that went live, I opened the link and just the light bulbs went off in my head again, and I thought, I'm ready to search, which surprised me more than anybody else.
Yeah.
So I had a friend who had said to me some years ago, if the time comes when you want to search, give me a call and I'll put you in touch and I'll tell you what to do. And I said, okay. So she told me about children's services and where to, get onto the website. So I downloaded the piece of paper and filled it all out. And I thought, well, I won't post it off. I'll go into the city. So I hopped on the train and into Charlotte Street and fronted up. And they were lovely. They were really lovely. So they gave me all of the dates, the details, the time, the birth, because I'd buried that stuff so deeply. I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember a lot of things.
Yeah.
So they gave me all those dates, etc. And then the other organisation was post-adoption support, which is very similar to your Jigsaw in that they help source the person.
Yeah. So that's Post-Adoption Support Queensland. So
yes,
some people might know it as PASC. Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Because I live in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And so I got in contact with them and they helped me enormously. And part of my preparation, part of my mindset was, how would I deal with it if I got rejected? And I didn't know which of the children would come up first. And I thought, well, whichever one comes up first, I'll follow that line and I'll leave the other one until later. And it was my daughter who came up first because she never married and she had stayed in Brisbane, so she was probably easier to find. So it only took 2 months for them to find her, and then another 2 months for all the bits and bobs to get lined up and all the information aligned. And it happened very quickly. They sent the information out on a Wednesday. I got it on, and Sue got hers. It all posted at the same time. So it went out Wednesday. We got it on Thursday. We chatted on Friday because there were contact details there, and we met on the Saturday.
Yeah, we're all very quick.
So that really happened very quickly.
Yes.
And I think that a big part of that was the preparation work that I had put into it. And I think Sue was about 10 days shy of 50 at that stage. And she had got to the point where she just wanted to know. So that first day that I met her, I was very grateful. I had already, through her email, our little contact prior to that, she had told me that she'd been brought up with beautiful parents. She'd had a wonderful life, which I was very grateful for. So I picked up a miniature rose and a nice card, which I gave to her to give to her adoptive mother to say thank you for giving Sue the life that I couldn't. And Sue and I had a lovely couple of hours together. And we catch up a few times a year. She has never made any mention about contacting her parents. Her adoptive parents are quite elderly and unwell. So
you mean letting them know that she'd met you? Is that what you mean?
I know that they knew because she talked to all of her family.
Okay.
She's got three siblings.
Yeah.
And I think 2 of them are adopted. I can't quite remember those numbers now. A couple of them are adopted and a couple aren't.
Okay.
But she talked to all of her family before she responded to me.
Okay. Yeah.
So they knew, and she had permission, whether she needed it or not, but she had that permission from her adoptive parents. Yes, it was okay it was okay with them for her to move forward and to meet me. So it was absolutely an incredible experience. So I let it sit then for a couple of years, and then my partner and I were going on a trip halfway around Australia, sort of down the Australian coast, across the Victoria, into Adelaide, straight up through the centre and back home through central Queensland. And it wasn't long before I left home, I thought, it had been rumbling around in my head, and I thought, I'm ready to search now for David, because I'd been given both names when I got the information from Children's Services. So I went back to Post-Adoption Support Queensland and said, I'm ready to move on. and I got the same lady to look after me. And we started the search. And this one took 4 months. David was a bit slower in responding because I'm not sure how Jigsaw works, but with post-adoption support, they send out a generic letter. And if they don't get any answer to that within a few weeks, they send a registered letter. And then if that doesn't happen, they follow up with a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And if nothing happens from that, they try again in 6 months. So that's sort of the basic process.
Mm-hmm.
So when David got it, he told me later, when he got the first letter, he just shoved it in a drawer and thought, what's this? And it wasn't until he got the registered letter, which again he put in the drawer, and his wife, he's married with 2 children. His wife said, don't you think you should just have a look at this? So he opened it and then responded to me. So it was 4 months from start to meet for David, which in the scheme of things is still not a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed ages to me.
Yes,
It
yeah.
unfolded as we were travelling.
Yeah.
And I knew that he'd been adopted by a couple in Cairns, and he still lives up there. So as we chatted a couple of times as we were going up through we had our first contact when we were in Coober Pedy. So we were travelling up through the centre of Australia, and David and I'd said to my partner, to Pete, how would you feel, because we're going to go to Mount Isa and then come home through Western Queensland. I said, how would you feel if we go home via Cairns? It's not that far out of the way, only about 1,200 k's. And he said, yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to do that. He's very obliging. So the next time I was speaking to David, I said, would you be, if we came home via Cairns, are you ready to meet me? If so, we can come home via Cairns. If you're not ready, that's fine. We'll go home and we'll meet at a later date. And he said, oh, no, that's fantastic. So we made that decision that we would go via Cairns.
Mm-hmm.
The night we got to Darwin, I got a text from him. It was a Sunday evening, and said, are you in Darwin yet? And I thought, that's an odd thing to say. So I replied and said, yes, why do you ask? He said, because I'm in Darwin too. You want me shopping in the morning? Now he had we were just drifting along.
Yeah.
We didn't have set plans. He had no intentions of being in Darwin, but he's with a group of fellas who bet, and the Darwin Cup was on the next day. One of the men had a heart attack on the Friday and couldn't travel, so they rang David and said, do you want the ticket?
So you just happened to be there.
The universe was right in there with me. So we met the next morning for coffee.
Yeah.
And it was just beautiful. And then we did still go on to Cairns, and we stayed in a resort, and then we did actually spend a couple of nights with them as well.
Yeah. So what have these reunions with your daughter and son brought to your life?
I beg your pardon?
What have these reunions with your daughter and son brought to your life?
Peace, serenity, completing. I look at it as completing circles.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've had a look at my website, and there's 3 interlocking circles, but there's little spaces in them. And I consider that completing circles in my life, but there's room for expansion. Mm-hmm. There's room for things to come in and room for things to come out.
Yeah.
And at this stage, I feel like I've completed circles. I feel like I've done, I don't know whether you say the right thing. That's probably the phrase that pops into my mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's really completing circles.
Yeah.
And with David, he said, my adoptive mum would like to meet you too, because she's still in Cairns. So the 3 of us had a coffee together, and she gave me about a dozen photos of David from when he was a toddler until he was in his late teens, which I thought was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then his wife said, my mum wants to meet you too. So I got to meet her and 2 children. So I've got a nice relationship with them.
That's fantastic. Just a little question without notice, but you've done a lot of writing now about your experience and with the aim of helping other people. I think writing is a really good way, or any of the arts are a really good way of processing our feelings and experiences.
Mm.
How has it helped you?
Journaling is what helped me.
Yeah.
Big time. I started journaling. I was probably journaling prior to Liz's passing away, but I got serious about it and journaling and working through things. One of the first things I did was someone gave me some pamphlets about Al-Anon. I didn't even know what it was. So for any listeners who don't know, it's for the family and friends of alcoholics, whereas AA is for the alcoholic themselves. And as I read the literature, my personality jumped out as an adult child of an alcoholic parent. So that helped me to see where I'd come from.
Yeah.
And then that allowed me to move forward. And I've done all sorts of other self-development work, Louise Hay, and lots and lots of stuff over many, many years. And journaling was a continuing thing, including The Artist's Way with Julia Cameron's book and her morning pages. I followed that religiously for years, and it really helped shape me. And then it was the journaling that led into the book.
Yeah.
I've also been a Toastmaster for 46 years, but it's a big jump to writing a 5 to 7 minute speech to writing a book. But I did it.
Congratulations.
I broke and shared the story at Toastmasters first, where I was in a safe environment. And I've now done a lot of speaking, got videos up on YouTube. I did a series of about 14 little videos between about 2 and 5 minutes that covered my adoption journey.
Yeah.
Just as a point of encouragement for others to, if it's inside you, let go of all that fear of the past. Let go of that shame. We don't have to carry that with us. And one of the biggest things before I wrote the original Beyond Abuse was I had to come to a point of forgiveness to the rapists and my father, because I wouldn't have been able to write that book authentically if I didn't come from that point.
Yeah.
Because forgiveness doesn't mean that it doesn't matter what happened. It means you're forgiving them so that I could find the peace to move on and create a life.
That's wise words, and that's a lot of work to get to that point.
There's a lot of work to get to that point.
It's not just a decision that comes quick, is
it?
No.
And so I'd done a whole lot of work before joining up with PASQ. But I did even more then. And again, I repeated the thing with about what would happen if I was rejected before I met David.
I really love how you told us that you'd done a lot of work in preparation for meeting your children, and that's so important, because, we can get really caught up and distracted by the search itself, the logistics of that, without thinking about, that inside journey, the things that we need to think about before we meet someone, which will, help it have the best outcome it can, I guess,
because
for everybody.
I've seen a couple of these TV shows where people rock up and knock on the door. I can't see that can have a good outcome. I would never, ever have done that.
Yeah.
I think, and the fact of the third-party intervention, it gave Sue and David the time and the space and the opportunity to speak to another person, an unattached, a person who didn't have wasn't biased in any way, for them to make the decision about whether they would move forward or not.
Yeah.
So there was no pressure from me.
Yeah.
It was absolutely up to them.
Yeah.
They wanted to move forward. And if they had said no, that would have been the end of the story.
Yeah.
The post-adoption did say to me that if it's a no, it's not always a no forever. And they try again 6 to 12 months later and see if there's any change. But in my instance, it wasn't. I had that positive response, and both David and Sue had wonderful adoptive parents. They had a wonderful life, and they're amazing adults now.
Oh, it's a really great ending, Di. I just wonder if you got any final thoughts that you'd like to leave with us today. It's one quick ring from the phone. Oops, we've lost Di for a second.
Sorry, I didn't cut you.
That's all right. I've lost your video there too.
It doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
Oh, I see it turned off.
There you are.
I never use my landline. I think they're probably telemarketers, and I don't. And it just every now and again it rings. And
it's Murphy's Law. that when
Isn't
you're
it?
doing an interview, my dog will bark or something will be delivered and somebody's phone will ring.
Can you repeat the last question?
I was just asking if you had any final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with today.
Just that life today is very different to what it would have been back when someone had to give up a child.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never too late to have a go, but ensure that you're the person you need to be to meet your children before you start out.
That's really, really wise words.
Yes. And I've been blessed with the support and the help that I received, and I was prepared to follow through with that help and do the personal work so that I was the very best person I could be when I met Sue and David. Such a blessing.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I feel so privileged to have listened to it and just heard the wisdom that you share with everybody. And we'll put some links to Di's website, which has links to her books and the other things that she mentioned today so that you can all have a look. We'll put that on our podcast notes page. And I'm going to grab Di's books and put them in our Jigsaw Queensland library too, which we have for our members to borrow from. So thank you so much for joining us, Di.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Jo. It's been amazing. Thank you for allowing me to share a story that hopefully can help other people.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us. I'll pop some relevant links, including Di's website, like I said, on the podcast notes page, and about her books as well. And if you have a story that you'd like to share with us, if you'd like to be interviewed by the podcast, jump onto the main podcast page of the Jigsaw Queensland website and complete the prospective guest form that you'll find there. And note that Adopt Perspective can be listened to by people all over the world. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Adopt Perspective podcast. If you'd like to find out more, go to the podcast page on www.jigsawqueensland.com and you'll find a wealth of information and resources on the website. If you reside in Queensland, you can reach Jigsaw Queensland's Forced Adoption Support Service on toll-free 1800 210313, or you can call Jigsaw on 07 33 58 6666. If you live in another state of Australia, you can still call the Forced Adoption Support Service number and your call will be answered by the Forced Adoption Support Service in the state that you're calling from. In every other state, Relationships Australia operates this service. A big thank you to Matt Sparrow for composing and recording our original theme music. Until next time, I'm Jo Sparrow saying farewell from Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption.